I have kids and grandkids, and they change their mind about going to Disney because my daughter says, I absolutely refuse to go to the States. She doesn't feel safe. I hate to point out Trump, but it's one of the obvious reasons. If the politics changes in the States, for sure I think we would.
Do you have any plans to go to the States in this?
No, I do not. I wouldn't want to. I think it's challenging to go back there now. There's too many questions, searching your phones, asking what you're doing. It's just not worth the hassle.
We've certainly curtailed our plans to visit the United States and buy goods from that country.
We don't really want to spend our money in a country that is undertaking certain actions within the world that's destabilizing the world and likely undertaking illegal activity onto other countries.
Statistics Canada released preliminary data on Monday that sent shockwaves through the U.S. tourism industry as Canadians made 22.9 million visits to the United States by car or plane in 2025, compared with 31.9 million the previous year, which represents a 28% plunge. And this is not a minor fluctuation, but a full-scale grassroots boycott driven by anger over President of the United States Donald Trump's trade war and repeated calls for Canada to become the 51st state. The economic impact is staggering because in 2024, Canadian tourism contributed $20.5 billion to the U.S. economy and supported 140,000 American jobs, according to a report by the Democrat minority of the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee, and that revenue stream is now evaporating, as a U.S. Travel Association report forecasts that international tourism spending will decline by $5.7 billion in 2025 compared with the previous year, with the association largely attributing the loss to the decline in Canadian visitors since Donald Trump returned to office in January. Every state along the U.S.-Canada border is facing declines in tourism and rising economic pressures, as the congressional report states that the number of passenger vehicles crossing the border between January and October dropped by nearly 20% compared with 2024, with declines ranging from more than 10% in Alaska to more than 28% in Vermont. While in New Hampshire, officials reported a 30% decrease in Canadian visitors and reservations for state-run campgrounds were down 71% in the first 5 months of 2025, with one hotel owner in North Conway reporting that 30% of their rooms were empty during some summer weekends that usually sell out. Kyle Daly, owner of Solomon's Store in West Stewartstown, New Hampshire, told the committee that the usual parade of vacationers heading to Old Orchard Beach simply did not show up this year, and he stated that the friction at the border is no longer just a headline but an empty parking lot and a direct threat to livelihoods. While in Montana, Canadians accounted for nearly 80% of international visitors in 2024 and contributed $170 million to the state economy, but in 2025, border crossings were down 19% in the first 10 months of the year, with one Montana hotel reporting a $38,000 loss after a Canadian sports team canceled its reservation, which included 70 rooms and a 200-person dinner. Diane Medler, executive director of Discover Kalispell in Montana, stated that in the spring, businesses noticed a 25% decrease in Canadian travel and a 44% drop in Canadian credit card spending compared with 2024. And by September, the situation had improved slightly, with the drop in Canadian credit card spending down to 39%, as Kalispell launched a Canadian Welcome Pass with discounts for Canadian visitors in an attempt to lure them back. While in Washington state, the number of passenger vehicles crossing the border was down 24%, and cities like Spokane reported a 33% decline. Flight Centre Canada, one of the country's largest travel agencies, reported a 40% year-over-year decline in bookings to the United States, and the company expects this trend to continue throughout 2026 as Air Canada has added 28 international routes this year. While Canadian vacationers pivot to Europe, the Caribbean, and South America, and Air Canada, Flair, Porter, and WestJet have cut some U.S. routes altogether, while European airlines are also reducing U.S. capacity, with Air France, British Airways, and Lufthansa all cutting flights to destinations such as Atlanta, Las Vegas, Miami, and New York, according to the website AeroRoutes. The boycott is not just about travel, as it reflects broader Canadian sentiment, because an Angus Reid Institute poll in late February 2025 found that 98% of respondents said they were looking for made-in Canada products when they peruse store aisles, while half said they are replacing as many American products as they can find. Substitutes for and 37% said they are replacing those where they can find similar price and quality, meaning a total of 85% are replacing at least some American products, as some Canadians have joined Buy Canadian groups on social media platforms like Facebook, with one group reported to have 1.2 million members as of early March 2025. According to Loblaw Company's Chief Executive Officer Per Bank, sales volumes of tariffed American products are down 15 to 20% on average this year, with some categories reporting an even steeper 50% decline, while sales of domestic products remain up, demonstrating a strong desire by consumers to continue supporting Canadian products and brands, as the supermarket giant has added more than 100 new Canadian suppliers of food and other items since the start of the year, as consumers turn away from American goods, either out of patriotism or because of higher prices. A spokesperson for the U.S. Travel Association said in a statement that just a 10% decline in Canadian tourists could wipe out some 14,000 U.S. jobs, and the drop is on pace to be much larger than that in 2025. As Canadian resident return trips by automobile dropped 28.6%, marking the 11th consecutive month of year-over-year declines, according to Statistics Canada, with the numbers beginning to fall immediately after Donald Trump took office in January and persisting throughout the year. Americans also traveled to Canada less frequently, as those trips fell 5% to 17.8 million, according to Statistics Canada data. However, the asymmetry is stark because Canadians are avoiding the United States in far greater numbers than Americans are avoiding Canada, reflecting that the boycott is primarily driven by political anger rather than economic conditions affecting both countries equally.